All right, while all the hype right now is focused on Apple's Vision Pro headset, that was not the only product that Apple announced at WWDC. They announced quite a few new Macs, and one of those new Macs, I think, has a chance at being Apple's most popular Mac yet. The new 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. Yeah, this was a product that was rumored for about the past year, and we finally got to see it at WWDC. And I think this turned out way better than I was expecting. So for this video, I want to tell you everything that's new with this new 15-inch MacBook Air, go over the specs, tell you some things maybe you didn't know about it, and then also give you some buying advice at the end of this video on what configuration you should order, or if you should even order a 15-inch M2 MacBook Air at all, or maybe even some other options you might want to consider. So let's get to it. What's new with this 15-inch M2 MacBook Air? Well, honestly, it's pretty easy. This 15-inch MacBook Air is basically a 15.3-inch display version of the existing 13-inch MacBook Air. And there aren't too many changes here, but there are a few. So I think the first change is the price point. Now, this is a new product, so it didn't really change the price point, but the existing 13-inch M2 MacBook Air actually got a price cut, bringing it down from $1,199 to $1,099, a $100 price cut. But because there's now this new, bigger 15-inch laptop in the market, well, that was able to actually come in at a lower price point than I even predicted because of this price cut. So this 15-inch laptop actually starts off at $1,299. Yes, a 15-inch laptop from Apple at $1,300. I think that's a fantastic deal. I was predicting like $1,500 when there was rumors for this laptop, and the fact that it's $1,300, it's really only actually technically a $100 price increase over the 13-inch M2 Air, because unlike the 13-inch M2 Air, this 15-inch comes with the full M2 chip with the 10-core GPU as standard. That is something I did predict in my rumor videos. But yeah, so it's only a $100 price difference if you're going for that full 10-core chip on the 13-inch model to upgrade to that 15-inch model. So that pricing there is excellent. Usually when Apple, or in the past when Apple's done their bigger laptops, it's been a $200 upgrade to jump to the bigger screen size. This time, it's just a $100 upgrade on the MacBook Air. So, you know, price really isn't an issue here when you're going for the MacBook Air. You get to decide if you want the smaller screen or the bigger screen size version. For the 15-inch MacBook Air, spec-wise, though, it can be configured exactly the same. You're not getting really any performance advantages here, and the really only new feature is the bigger screen size. Unlike Apple's 16-inch laptop, which does get better battery life and more battery capacity, this 15-inch doesn't. It does have more battery capacity in it, but it's not a huge jump. It's only about a 10 watt-hour increase, and because it's a bigger laptop driving a bigger display, that balanced out to be about the same battery life. And I think Apple did that on the Air to prioritize it being lighter. Now, with the 16-inch laptop, they don't have to worry about it being super light because it's built as a MacBook Pro, and that goes all the way up to like 4.8 pounds, I think, 4.7 pounds around there. So, you know, it's a little bit of a heavier laptop, but with this 15-inch MacBook Air, it actually only comes in at 3.3 pounds. That's lighter than the 14-inch MacBook Pro, which weighs 3.5 pounds, and only a little bit heavier than the current M2 MacBook Air, which weighs 2.7 pounds. And then the thinness on this laptop. Apple is saying that this is the thinnest 15-inch laptop ever. And if you look at the thinness compared to the current MacBook Air, I think it's only 0.1 inches thicker. So this is going to be a very thin, a very sleek, and a very portable 15-inch laptop. I'm actually really excited to see what this looks like in person. Now, design-wise, it basically looks almost exactly the same, right? It has a bigger screen, but there is an exclusive feature from this bigger design, and you might be able to guess this. Better speakers. Yeah, when Apple makes a bigger laptop, they're usually able to fit in better acoustics in there and better speakers, and Apple is claiming that the 15-inch MacBook Air has better speakers. I guess when I get to review it, I'll be able to test that out for myself. The final new small thing is an optional 70-watt power brick. You can choose between that and the dual 35-watt USB-C power brick. And that will apparently fast charge the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. But really, when you're looking at exclusive features for this bigger 15-inch laptop, the better features are the bigger display and the better speakers. everything else is about the same. So if you're looking at display specs, it's the same as the 13-inch MacBook Air. If you're looking at performance, it's the same as the 13-inch MacBook Air. If you're looking at battery life, it's the same as the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air. And color options are, of course, the same as well. So you can get it in silver, space gray, gold, and of course that new midnight color. So yeah, here it is, a 15-inch MacBook Air at $1,300. I think it's looking like a really good deal. But, you know, should you order one? Is this 15-inch version of the M2 MacBook Air right for you? Well, I think it's a pretty easy decision, right? Because you basically just have to decide between screen sizes. Do you want a smaller screen or do you want a bigger screen? And is that bigger screen worth the $100 additional price point up from the 13-inch MacBook Air? I think for a lot of users it is. I've seen a lot of comments on my videos over the years. I've talked to people that say that they want a big laptop screen, but they don't necessarily need all the power that's in something like a 16-inch MacBook Pro. And if you're stepping up to that 16-inch MacBook Pro, you know that comes with a massive price increase. That starts at $2,500. You could almost buy two of these 15-inch laptops for the same price as one single 16-inch MacBook Pro. So if you're looking at it from a value perspective, this is a really good deal. If you need a little bit more screen real estate to work with, I think this 15-inch M2 MacBook Air is quite frankly going to fly off the shelves. I think it's going to possibly be one of Apple's most popular laptops ever because the 15-inch laptop size is actually the most popular Windows laptop size, and Apple has never offered a kind of like affordable big screen MacBook option that wasn't something in like that $2,000 price range. So that looks great. As for configuration recommendations, you do get that full 10-core GPU even on the base model, so you don't have to worry about that. That's really good. It starts with the same specs as the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air, so it only comes with 8 gigabytes of memory, which is kind of fine on Apple Silicon if you're just doing basic tasks. And it comes with 256 gigabytes of storage. Now, I assume, just like the M2 MacBook Air, that's going to be the slower 256 gigabyte drive because it's only using a single drive. So if you are planning to use this for, there's some people, like most people buying this are going to use it for basic applications, right? Like word processing, browsing the web, FaceTime calls, listening to music, watching video, Zoom calls, all those basic things that you do on a laptop. This base model version is going to be fine for that. If you need more storage, if you're worried about storing photos or large video files or whatever, step up to 512 gigabytes, step up to a terabyte if you have to and you can afford it. But if you're worried about performance, even though it has that lower SSD speed, it's going to perform just fine. Don't worry about it. But if you maybe are stepping up more into the intermediate range, right? This is a 15-inch laptop. It's potentially a really good multimedia laptop. And even though it's not a pro laptop, the M2 chip is no slouch. You can give this 15-inch laptop to anyone starting with photo editing or video editing, something in that pro workload, development. This would probably be a great laptop for developers who want a bigger screen and who are on a budget and want to develop for like Mac or iOS or whatever. You might want to step up to that 512 gigabytes of storage to get that faster SSD speed. And also because if you are a pro, chances are you're going to need more storage than the average person. So that's an easy recommendation to make. Obviously, if you are a pro as well, I would consider adding up to at least 16 gigabytes of memory. And I think that overall is going to make that laptop much smoother and you're not going to have to swap to memory as often. Now, is there anything else that you should consider besides this 15-inch MacBook Air? Well, normally I have like a whole list of options of things you should consider, but when I'm really looking at the target level audience for this laptop, I really can look at like the base level ranges, right? And you look at something like the 13-inch MacBook Air, obviously that's a good choice if you want a smaller laptop, right? If you want the smaller laptop, you don't want a big screen, go for that. But then what's the other choice? Well, you have the 13-inch M2 MacBook Pro. Technically, you will get better performance out of that because it has a fan in it, but it is the same chip. And for $1,300 between that old MacBook Pro design with the Touch Bar and this 15-inch M2 MacBook Air, personally, I would rather take the little bit of sacrifice in sustained performance to get that bigger screen, to get that newer design. That I would make that call. So I think that 13-inch MacBook Pro at the same price point as this MacBook Air is kind of useless. I would not recommend that MacBook Pro at all. I think like the vast majority of people are going to be better served by this 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. Now, what about other recommendations, right? Like at $1,299 base price point, this is a great laptop. At $1,500 with the 512 gigabytes of storage, this is a great option. But as you start to spec this up, as you start to add more memory and more storage, you can start to creep into the pricing territory of the pro level laptops. So if you are creeping into that territory, you have a decision to make. Do you go for the option of something like a 14-inch MacBook Pro, which, yeah, it does have a smaller screen, but it has a mini LED display, so it's a better display, right? The 15-inch M2 MacBook Air is still a regular LCD liquid retina display, 500 nits of brightness, so it doesn't get that HDR-capable display. And then, the MacBook Pro is thicker. It's a little bit heavier at 3.5 pounds. The battery life is about 1 hour less, but it has more performance. So if you really are you want to do professional video editing, you don't want to worry about performance slowdowns in the future, maybe this is something you get rather than someone who's a light video editor or someone who's starting out in video editing. Maybe that's the call to make if you're starting to spec this 15-inch up to around that $2,000 pricing territory. But then, I think the natural option to upgrade to is obviously if you're interested in a 15-inch laptop, you probably aren't interested in the 14-inch MacBook Pro. You probably want to go up to the 16-inch MacBook Pro. And then I think that starts to become a harder sell. Because I think it's just two entirely different markets, right? The 16-inch laptop, it's $2,500 to start at. The 15-inch M2 MacBook Air, $1,300. So if you have a big budget and you need a pro-level laptop, this advice is useless to you. You're gonna get the 16-inch MacBook Pro. You're not worried about the budget. You're probably not watching this video. But most people watching this video are interested in the 15-inch MacBook Air. They don't need all the power of the 16-inch MacBook Pro. They just want a laptop with a bigger screen, with great performance, which the M2 MacBook Air does have. And I think this is going to be a fantastic option. The 15-inch MacBook Air is available to order right now as you're watching this video, and it's going to be released on the 13th, which I believe is a Tuesday. So within a week, you can pick up this MacBook Air in the Apple Store and get it shipped to your house. So yeah, that is everything that is new with the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. Let me know in the comments below. Do you plan on ordering a 15-inch MacBook Air? And is there anything you want me to check out specifically for my review? I ordered one. I plan on reviewing it. It looks very similar to the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air, so I don't think there's too many unexpected things to look out for. But if there is something, let me know. If you like this video, be sure to give me a like. If you want to see more, including the full review of the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.